With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in this morning to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson, and I have joining me somebody I'm excited to have on the show today, Lorrie Boyer. And I'm so excited because, first off, she is one of my very good friends. She is also a former Farm Broadcaster of the Year, and she is the new co-host for the AgNet News Hour. So let's welcome Lorrie Boyer. Lorrie, all right, let's start off with tell us a little bit about yourself. I know who you are, of course, but tell the listeners a little bit about you.
Well, first off, I love that little former farm broadcaster in there. Way to dig that in. I'm like, oh man, that's just now setting in. I don't have that crown anymore. The crown is yours. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll get to your question, I promise. I'm like a politician, right? This is what we do all the time. But it was such a special moment for me, and I hope for you, because this was the first year at our farm broadcasting convention that someone else has announced the Farm Broadcaster of the Year, and other than our chair. And this year I got to do that. So as the reigning Farm Broadcaster, pass that on to you. So it was very special. I hope they keep doing that.
I agree. That was really special to have you passing on the Farm Broadcaster of the Year award to me. That was something extremely memorable for me. So thank you for being part of that.
Yes. Yeah, it is an extremely memorable moment. So that being said, I am a veteran farm broadcaster, I guess, if you will, now using that word. Been doing this for 28 years, almost actually after the first year, it'll be 29 years that I'll have been doing this, and based in Colorado, northeastern Colorado, out on a plain. So a lot of times when you say Colorado, everyone, of course, thinks the beautiful mountains and ski areas and a majestic snow. No, I'm not in that area. I'm on the other side, where it's pretty flat, and it's where most of the farming takes place. As a matter of fact, a majority of the farming takes place. So been doing this. My degree is actually from Colorado State University. It's a long one, technical journalism with an emphasis on agriculture. I thought I was going to be a writer like you, Sabrina. I thought I was going into print media and print journalism. I did start that way. I did my internships with ag publications and started off on that route. I got married right after college and moved to southeastern Colorado and worked for what was called the Ag Journal. They're no longer in business. And I worked there, and this was before all the new technology. So before we had all the computer, this too, it was cut and paste literally and rolling it out, big, long sheets of paper. And it was quite the system to be able to get something published back then.
Oh my gosh. I remember those days. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I started out in print, like you said, back in the 90s, and for the Madera Tribune there in Central California. And same with the long sheets of paper. We used to have to wax the back of it and then use an X-Acto knife to cut out sentences and wax it to the boards. That's what it was like working at a daily newspaper back in the 90s. We're ancient, Lorrie.
We are. It's so funny. Oh, I can't believe you brought up the X-Acto knife. Yeah. So if there was a typo, you could go in there and cut out one little, like the apostrophe or whatever the letter was. But yeah, I did that. And so that meant, because it was in even more rural area than I'm in now, that meant driving late at night and on these country roads, which I wasn't used to because I grew up just outside of Denver. What actually used to be agriculture, not so much anymore, but it used to be an ag area, but even further southeast, way more ag. And just driving home late at night, newly married on the roads. It was scary. It was sketchy in the winter. And I think a lot of people would relate to this. I worked with all women and I was young. So I was getting eaten alive while I was there. I just wasn't happy. I happened to be listening to a local radio station in Lamar, Colorado, and they were looking for an on-air assistant. I always say this is a God thing because I don't know what else it would be. And so I went in and I applied. Now, in the meantime, let me tell you, my mom had always said, oh, you should be in radio. You should be in radio. And of course, you don't listen to your mom. You ignore her when you're in your teens and your early 20s. So I just wrote her off. I listened to her and I went in there and I applied. And it just so happens, this is where the God thing comes in. They were looking for somebody to do their agriculture news and agriculture interviews. There you have it. That's how I got started in radio. So I worked for KLMR radio for 5 years, and then I went to the competitor for 4 years. The reason I went there is I had the opportunity to build the department from scratch. And I thought, what a great opportunity. I'm not going to get that again. And so I went to the competitor and it was fun. And I built that from scratch. I started having children, and one of my goals was to start a network. So I started the Colorado Ag News Network, stayed home with my kids part-time, and I ran that for a while. Then I met the owner of KSIR in Fort Morgan, Colorado, which is Northeast Colorado. That's how I ended up over here. And I went to work for KSIR, ran my network for a while. Eventually I sold the network. It was just a lot with 2 kids and being younger, just too much. Sold that network out. And then I started working. I worked at KSIR for a while before I sold it, and then worked at KSIR full time. I did take a little break from radio to work on my master's degree. And then I went right back into radio. It's in my blood. And so I've been working for KSIR ever since. Been there about 21 years now. I decided about a year and a half ago to go out on my own, start my own company where I could actually do ag news and information for various entities, because Sabrina, there's not very many of us. And there's a need. And sometimes somebody needs a vacation. And sometimes an ag station doesn't always have room for a second broadcaster full time. Or some stations want to carry ag news, but they don't want to hire someone to just do that. And that's where I have found that there's a need in our industry, and that's where I come in. So that's where I'm at now. And then, of course, you and I know each other through our National Association of Farm Broadcasting. And you've mentioned a few opportunities here and there along the way, and this was good timing. And so here we are.
And it's very exciting. So we're going to take a quick break right here, but then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about agriculture, and we're going to talk about some connections between California and Colorado. We'll be right back. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. How do humates, and specifically those produced by Live Earth Products, help with greenhouse gas emissions in farming practices?
So the interesting thing is that I like to say it's unique to us, but it's not. Humates and organic matter do a very interesting and very important task in the soil, and that is retain nitrogen. Now, what happens is when farmers apply nitrogen, not all of it is obviously used by the plant. And so some of that nitrogen is lost in multiple ways. It's lost, volatilized, mineralized, or converted. And what happens is some of those converted gases are released as very potent greenhouse gases. And so by the organic nature of humic acids and humates, it helps stabilize that nitrogen, reduce those conversions. Therefore, you get less of those gases created. Now, what's interesting is there's a double dip here, because a lot of times these nitrogen products are created through a process called the Haber-Bosch process. That Haber-Bosch process relies on fossil fuels to create those and fix those nitrogen out of the atmosphere. So by reducing your nitrogen utilization, you also reduce those carbon emissions that are created during the creation of that fertilizer. It's a double dip. You save the fertilizer that you're applying, and you're also reducing your carbon footprint by reducing nitrogen loss.
So with that in mind, tell me a little bit about what exactly Live Earth does.
So typically farmers were using our humates or our liquid humic acids with their nitrogen products. And what that does, it helps stabilize that nitrogen, let that plant get a longer opportunity to use that before that nitrogen is lost, volatilized, or converted. And the technology is not unique just to nut crops. It's used with every nitrogen product. We've got some really neat university trials using our humic acid with a liquid UAN32, and it's a liquid nitrogen that it can be lost in the nature just due to inefficiencies and poor storage in the soil.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. I am talking with Lorrie Boyer, who you will be hearing a lot from because she is the new co-host of the AgNet News Hour, and I am so excited for that. Lorrie, tell us a little bit about agriculture. I know that you're reporting now on California agriculture, even though you do live in Colorado, but you know a lot about what's going on in California ag. But I'm curious, when you started reporting on California agriculture, was there anything that kind of surprised you or that you didn't know?
That is a great question. And there was a lot that surprised me. What really surprised me was the similarities between Colorado and California. Our politics are along the same lines. Our issues are along the same lines. So for a couple examples of that are water. We have a lot of water issues here in Colorado, and there is a lot of controversy over how to use the water, how to conserve water, who gets the first dibs on water. We do have a whole lengthy process on junior rights and senior rights and stuff like that, but there's still fights. California, a lot of that same thing. a lot of the same time of a lot of same drought issues, excuse me, that we experience. California gets wild weather patterns in different parts of the state. So do we. So it keeps you on your toes for sure. Also, we fall in line with California on a lot of our animal rights activist groups wanting to change production agriculture and in some cases eliminate production agriculture. So another example here would be in Sonoma County, where animal rights are wanting to do away with CAFOs. We had a very similar bill in the city and county of Denver. It did fail. Very much the same thing. And as a matter of fact, I've been told, and I have not fact checked this, but the animal rights groups really target Colorado and California for the test markets, if you will. And then their plan is to take that to the other states. Have you heard that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they try it out where they know that they have a friendly environment for their causes, and they will test out different techniques and different ways to get things on the ballot and see what works, and then they'll take it to less friendly areas. Yeah, so we're the testing grounds for a lot of these, California and Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely. Another example is the electric vehicle movement, if you will, if that's the right word to say today, because our governor is really following California's governor, what's going on with that. And we're following suit as well. As of right now, we also have a mandate that will bring all of our new electric vehicle sales in Colorado into the electric vehicle category by the early 2030s. I don't remember exactly if it's 2030 or 2031, but we are following suit, and our governor is watching what's going on there to see how that can play into what's going on here. Renewable energy is big in California. It's big here. Also, what some folks might not know is we do have a pretty robust specialty crops industry here in Colorado. We're very diverse, like California. We also have a lot of dairies, like California, especially here in Northeast Colorado. And actually, a few years ago, several dairies had been eyeballing Colorado as a possible second or new location from California into our state. So I do cover a lot of dairy information, but specialty crops, we have both specialty crops on the eastern side of the state as well as on the western side of the state with all the orchards and things up there. We don't have nuts though. We don't have the almonds, pistachios, walnuts that you have there, but we have the citrus and not as much, but we have citrus. We have a lot of vegetables here in Colorado. So a lot of your farm labor, pest, disease, all those types of issues, all the research that California does, we do a lot of that here in Colorado. And as a matter of fact, there's a few examples on how those entities are working together. Those universities are working together, as well as reducing methane and CO2. CSU works with the University of California oftentimes in doing some research on those things. So that's what really surprised me, Sabrina. And a couple other things is sometimes vegetable crops come up that you just don't really think about. This morning I was talking about cannoli. So sometimes I'm taken aback on some of those things that I often am not real familiar with, either my farm broadcasting or as a consumer.
Isn't that fun though? That's one of the things I love about our jobs is that we get to learn about things like that. And that otherwise you're not going to see cannoli at the grocery store,
Right?
not necessarily. So yeah, we get to learn about things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. So as we wrap up this first segment here of our show, just real quickly, we've got about a minute left. Tell me, what are some things that you're hoping to do on the AgNet News Hour?
Oh, that's a good question. And I hadn't really thought about. So just being a bigger part of the show, obviously, which is what we're working on doing right now. Also being able to help you out more so that you can do some of the other things that you would like to do and maybe actually give you a day off once in a while. And maybe just bring some different perspective, different sources, different way of looking at things, Sabrina. And I think that is so important. We hear a lot about how people don't really like mainstream media. You and I are not mainstream media, by the way.
Yeah.
But we have different perspectives and different resources that we can bring to the table that I think will just add value to the whole story of agriculture and the news that we are putting out there.
All right. So when we come back from the break, Lorrie is going to have her first segment on the show, and I'm excited to hear it. And who are you talking with today, Lorrie?
I am talking with the CEO, John Talbot of Real California Milk.
Nice. All right. Then when we come back from the break, you'll hear Lorrie Boyer, and she'll be talking about Real California Milk. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Lorrie Boyer.
My guest in this segment is Real California Milk Chief Executive Officer John Talbot. Today we'll be talking about a specific program that is under the auspices of Real California Milk. But before we do that, John, tell us more about yourself and then tell us more about Real California Milk as an organization.
Sure. My background is mostly on the consumer product marketing side of things. I started at Procter & Gamble, worked at Pepsi-Cola for a long time, Gallo Winery, and then got into the ag side. I actually worked at the Almond Board of California for a while, and that introduced me to some folks on the dairy side and made the jump over there. And I've been with CMAB for about 10 years now. And we get an assessment from dairy farmers to go out and in there to help support them, to help do research and promotion around dairy products, California dairy products. So we have efforts in both the communications side of the world relative to advertising, public relations, social media, all that kind of thing. And then we have a business development side that is mostly around product innovation, working with retailers, food service operators, working with our processors, and again, trying to help, create better innovation in the California dairy industry.
John, of the things that the Real California Milk Organization does, one of the programs that you run is the Accelerator Program. Tell me more about this program.
We're in our 6th year of it. We continue to find new things as kind of an outcome of this program, which is really the exciting part. And it all started around the idea of how might we combine two of California's greatest natural resources. On the one hand, you have, nutritious, delicious California milk products. And on the other, you have this insatiable entrepreneurial spirit here in California. And so how could we bring these two things together? So actually, it came from one of our dairy farmers, the idea of doing a Shark Tank for dairy products. And, over the years, we've evolved it and developed it, and it is really starting to cook now really well. And, we're getting a lot of great new product ideas. And the whole concept of the accelerator is to help do exactly that, accelerate some of these new product ideas so that they can be successful in the marketplace. So it's really grown, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And I think the dairy farmers really appreciate that effort to help bring new products to market.
All right. Well, thank you for explaining that. And so you've already had your 2024 applications for those new products for market. You've selected, correct me if I'm wrong here, you've selected the top 4, and then you have since selected your grand prize winner, correct?
Yeah, it's a little confusing. Think of it as a 2-year program, okay? In year 1 of the program, we send out a solicitation for ideas, and we usually create a theme. This year's theme was health and wellness benefits, okay? So just to give you some sense of, what we were looking for. And so what happens then is we get, and we got 40 some entries. Well, we take those 40 entries and we review them all. We have a panel of experts that help us cull that down to 8 semifinalists. Those 8 semifinalists then go through the accelerator program. We introduce them to all kinds of industry experts and then they get mentored in some of these different areas that they may not have any experience in, but are critical to getting products to marketplace. So then over the course of 3 or 4 months, narrow that down to 8 semifinalists. They go through the accelerator, and then we have this live pitch event, okay, that gives them an opportunity to not only let a panel of judges see their story, hear their pitch, taste their products, and then we take that from 8 down to 4. We identify 4 finalists, and then that's when the real important work starts, is getting those products out into the marketplace. So they've got 1 year from the pitch event to demonstrate how much they can actually deliver in terms of product sales. So that is the culmination, is we name our grand prize winner. It just happens to be, works out for us to do it on the same night that we do the pitch. It gets us from 8 down to 4 finalists. So they overlap a little bit.
I'm talking here today with John Talbot, CEO of Real California Milk. When we come back, we'll find out who the winners are. I'm Lorrie Boyer, and this is the AgNet News Hour. I continue my conversation here today with John Talbot, CEO of Real California Milk. We are talking about their accelerator program. Before the break, he explained what the program is and how it works. Now let's talk about the winners, John.
The grand prize winner from last year's Final Four, is a company called Petit Pot that makes a delicious pudding-like dessert product. And this year they introduced it in a sustainable package that is made with 80% renewable fibers. It's quite an interesting sustainability story, actually. So they were the grand prize winner with a little bit over $2 million in actual sales in year 1 of that product. So that was the grand prize winner. Then at the same time, we took the 8 semifinalists from the health and wellness theme this year and narrowed that down to 4 finalists for next year's winning. And those top 4 were a product called Toto, which is a meal replacement beverage aimed at the breakfast occasion that is protein fortified. It's got vitamins, it's got vegetables in it, it's got prebiotics in it. So it's a great all-around product meal replacement. The second one is a product called Pluff, which, as they say, it's not yogurt and it's not pudding, it's Pluff. It's somewhere in between. Also a dessert, but protein and health-oriented positioning on this, and it's a very fluffy kind of taste and mouthfeel. It's actually quite good. The third one is Projo, which is think of a power-packed coffee product, but made with real dairy. So it's a coffee and caffeine-oriented product. But it also has collagen protein in it, digestive enzymes, so some other things to give you a little more of a healthy product and nutrition profile. And then the last one is called Schmierkäse, which is, again, borrows off of a very popular trend right now in cottage cheese, but it's a cottage cheese ice cream is probably the best way to describe it. 40 grams of protein in a pint of Schmierkäse. So, and again, very different kind of flavor and mouthfeel than traditional ice cream, but great flavors and great, obviously, protein content. So we'll see. So these 4 now have a year to demonstrate what they can do in market. And then at the end of a year from now, we will identify a grand prize winner for this class of products.
John, the grand prize winner wins, it looks like $100,000. Is that right?
Correct.
And that money, is it earmarked for something? Do they have?
Yeah, it's for marketing and product introduction, sampling, all of that kind of thing, which we continue to help each of these companies with. So we stay very involved with all of them, actually, not even just the winners. But we have, over the 6 years, we still have 17 products that are still in the marketplace. And so we are constantly helping, these other ideas along the way as much as possible.
I know that the products on this list that you just mentioned are all California based, right?
Yes.
but the goal is to make them a national product, if I understood you right.
Sure, absolutely. The whole idea is to create an idea that can expand, and even internationally, not just nationally, but we have a number of these accelerator products that are being sold overseas now.
You've mentioned you have a rich history of success stories, it sounds like. And now that you're in your 6th year, all the products that have been the top 4 and the winners, or at least the winners, I should say, they're still out there. They're still in the market and growing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Nice. All right. Who does the judging?
It's a panel of judges that all come from the food or food technology background. We have and we have one dairy farmer always on our panel just to make sure we get the dairy farmer perspective in there. And it's wonderful to see over the years. We've had a variety of different folks, and we have some from the food. What would you call the press, the food press, that look at it from more of a a retail business perspective, and then we have some from the food technology side that are more critical of formulation, and then we have some from more the marketing business development side that look at their go-to-market plans and all of that kind of thing.
I know you work with other organizations like the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Tell me more about that part.
Well, we are what they call an instrumentality of the Department of Food and Ag. So we have oversight by the California Department of Food and Ag.
John, anything else to mention that I haven't asked about?
We do have a separate organization, if you will, called the California Dairy Innovation Center, which is not really a organization per se or a single facility. It's a collaboration between dairy processors, universities, and then dairy checkoff organizations like CMAB. And we have a steering committee of all the dairy industry that helps guide the work that is done. And we do a lot of research around potential new products. That it's all pre-competitive research, so it can be used by anybody in the industry. But we're looking at things like fruit milks, fiber milk, and other areas like that get at some of the inherent benefits in dairy that may not be promoted yet. And so that's a big part of our innovation effort as well.
John, anything else to mention that I haven't asked about?
We do have a separate organization, if you will, called the California Dairy Innovation Center, which is not really a organization per se or a single facility. It's a collaboration between dairy processors, universities, and then dairy checkoff organizations like CMAB. And we have a steering committee of all the dairy industry that helps guide the work that is done. And we do a lot of research around potential new products. That it's all pre-competitive research, so it can be used by anybody in the industry.
That was John Talbot, CEO of Real California Milk. I'm Lorrie Boyer. We're back with Sabrina Halverson right after this.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Joining us now is Gino DeCaro. He is the Director of Communications for Wine Institute. We have a couple of things we're talking about today, but we're going to start off talking about some fun items for the wine industry. All right, Gino, we're talking about two things that I hold very close to my heart, wine and the holidays. And I was wondering, let's talk about some wine pairings for the holidays. What do you have up your sleeve?
Well, I got to say, the holiday season in California wine country is simply spectacular, Sabrina. If for your listeners who haven't experienced it, we encourage them to participate and enjoy all that the California wine community has to offer in the holidays. It's certainly always a great and wonderful time for us at Wine Institute and California Wines to highlight the festive lights, the cozy tastings, incredible and unique experiences in wine country itself, and certainly the inspirational holiday recipes paired with California wines, which your listeners can find all of these events, experiences, and our convenient California wine pairing ebook with recipes at discovercaliforniawines.com.
Well, that makes it really easy, doesn't it?
It does.
I like that. So, if you were to head out to visit some California wineries during this time of year, what would you be looking to do?
Yeah, so this year we're trying to highlight both the holiday experiences that folks can kind of discover and participate in at one of 154 of California's American viticulture areas, but we're also trying to underscore these events that people can actually gift to friends and family. You know, it's nice because you can give these very unique gifts and without risk of being regifted. It's just a great way to kind of promote something that you love, whether it's a wine or an experience at one of these wineries. And some of the ones I wanted to highlight today with you were, you know, there's Six Sigma Ranch in Lake County where folks can participate and ride the vineyards in an ATV and visit the winery's highest elevation vineyard. That's kind of one of my favorites that I'm going to try to participate in. Prisoner Wine Company in Napa Valley, for instance, has an event where they're pairing their wines with dim sum, which is kind of an interesting event and something that is maybe perhaps a little bit more out of the ordinary, but worth your listeners' time. There's also Ancient Peaks Winery in San Luis Obispo, and they are highlighting, promoting an e-bike and a hike and zip lining and a ride among their vines. What a great experience to take an electric bicycle tour through its sprawling Santa Margarita Ranch and Vineyard. And the zip lining, you know, how can you go wrong? And I think my personal favorite is down in Temecula in Southern California at a winery called Botaya, where they're introducing their attendees to blend their own wine and take home a bottle or two of their own personally blended wine. And it's a really unique experience and great way to understand how some of these more than 100 varietals blend into particular wines in California. And these are just some of the things they can do. Again, we encourage your listeners to go to discovercaliforniawines.com, where they can see all of the events that were posted, whether they're in December during the holidays or some of the unique experiences that come in the new year, perhaps something that your listeners can give to their viewers. And again, at that website, they can also pick up the California wine pairing and recipe ebook that we put together over the last few months. And there's really some pretty spectacular meals and wine pairings in there.
So, do you have a favorite wine pairing for the holiday?
Well, I got to tell you, some of it is new to me, and my wife and I were talking about trying the deviled eggs trio, which pair quite nicely with a California rosé and a California sparkling wine. And you can it's nice because there are options in the recipe. You can do them with smoked trout, with harissa, which is probably my favorite, and also with caviar. I think my wife and I are going to start with the harissa one and bring that to our first holiday gathering this year. And a lot of these, I will say, are very simple recipes. We tried to keep this really easy for the folks who were downloading the ebook and wanted to pair the wines with their meals. None of these are going to take more than 30 to 40 minutes, unless it's the turkey one, and really simple to make, and really just pairs so perfectly with some of those distinct California wines that we all love so much.
You know, there's just something magical about a recipe that sounds so decadent, but yet is really simple to create. And then to have the wine pairing already, the information already there for you. I personally, I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. And in this day and age, Sabrina, as we all know, we don't have a lot of time. And the wine makes the meal. It really elevates the meal. So the more simple we can make the recipe, the better it is, and the more apt people are to take advantage of it. So we're really hoping a lot of folks use this holiday season and beyond.
So one more time for that web address.
DiscoverCaliforniaWines.com.
And while I have you, the report did just come out about this year's California vintage as far as how our wines are looking for this year. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, Sabrina, it looks like this year is really set to be a banner vintage for California wines. The old cliche, less is more. You can use that for this year because the quantities look to be a little lower than last year, but the quality is apparently spectacular. some quotes we've received from some winemakers for our recent report that we just put out. From a winemaker out of Napa Valley, I am seeing beautiful, deeply colored Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, backed with concentrated fruit, pillowy tannins, and bright acidity. From a winemaker in Paso Robles, so far this vintage looks to be fantastic, showing great color, structure, and mature flavors. This has been a vintage worth the wait. So that looks like up and down the state, this harvest is just going to be this vintage, excuse me, is going to be spectacular. It looks like the growing season started cool and wet and rainy, and the late summer heat really let those grapes ripen perfectly. And for all intents and purposes, this vintage looks like it's going to be one your listeners and the rest of us are going to want to get our hands on after these things get in the barrel and into bottles.
All right. Well, as always, I always appreciate chatting with you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, and thank you as well.
That was Gina DeCaro from the Wine Institute. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson, and we'll be back in just a moment. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. How do humates, and specifically those produced by Live Earth Products, help with greenhouse gas emissions in farming practices?
So the interesting thing is that I like to say it's unique to us, but it's not. Humates and organic matter do a very interesting and very important task in the soil, and that is retain nitrogen. Now, what happens is when farmers apply nitrogen, not all of it is obviously used by the plant. And so some of that nitrogen is lost in multiple ways. It's lost, volatilized, mineralized, or converted. And what happens is some of those converted gases are released as very potent greenhouse gases. And so by the organic nature of humic acids and humates, it helps stabilize that nitrogen, reduce those conversions. Therefore, you get less of those gases created. Now, what's interesting is there's a double dip here, because a lot of times these nitrogen products are created through a process called the Haber-Bosch process. That Haber-Bosch process relies on fossil fuels to create those and fix those nitrogen out of the atmosphere. So by reducing your nitrogen utilization, you also reduce those carbon emissions that are created during the creation of that fertilizer. It's a double dip. You save the fertilizer that you're applying, and you're also reducing your carbon footprint by reducing nitrogen loss.
So with that in mind, tell me a little bit about what exactly Live Earth does.
So typically farmers were using our humates or our liquid humic acids with their nitrogen products. And what that does, it helps stabilize that nitrogen, let that plant get a longer opportunity to use that before that nitrogen is lost, volatilized, or converted. And the technology is not unique just to nut crops. It's used with every nitrogen product. We've got some really neat university trials using our humic acid with a liquid UAN32, and it's a liquid nitrogen that it can be lost in the nature just due to inefficiencies and poor storage in the soil.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We are wrapping up the day today with some news. This year or next, speculation continues about when passage of a new farm bill by Congress will take place, especially by ag producers. Here's Rudd Bean.
Speculation among the ag sector continues over whether a farm bill will become law during the congressional lame duck session of what remains of 2024, especially now that both the House and Senate have introduced their versions. If not, when will it be approved in 2025? First, with only a handful of legislative days left for the House and Senate before year's end, the thoughts of some within the farm and food space are that
our chances of getting a farm bill done yet before the end of the year are pretty darn slim.
I think it's always been very slim margins that we do a farm bill in 2024, but I think they got slimmer because we just don't have much time left.
Why Rob LaRue of the National Farmers Union and Mary Kay Thatcher of Syngenta believe that is a matter of legislative logistics including facing a December 20th deadline to either pass a new fiscal year budget or at least approve a continuing resolution to fund the government into 2025.
We haven't passed any of the 12 appropriations bills. You've got elections that are occurring as far as leadership elections, and then you're going to have people vying for committee chairman slots and committees. There's just a lot to be done.
With the new administration and Congress set to take office in January, Sam Kiefer of the American Farm Bureau Federation says in the initial days of any new administration,
the first 100 days of every administration is the opportunity for that administration to talk about their priorities and do their big ideas. I fully anticipate that we will see that again.
Yet, will that lead to passage of a new farm bill within that 100-day period if that has not occurred in 2024? Perhaps the one certainty regarding a farm bill, according to John Newton of Terrain, is farmers and ranchers say they need it, and soon, for the very reason of certainty.
Right now we're operating in a world without a farm bill. The one-year extension that we did expired at the end of September. So it's important to get that certainty for next year, next spring, for the crop producers looking at ARC or PLC, for the dairy farmers thinking about dairy margin coverage. Is it going to be the status quo? Are we going to do an extension, or are we going to do the much-needed enhancements that agriculture's been asking for?
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Steve Hansen, the chair of the United States Meat Export Federation and a farmer rancher from southwest Nebraska, shares insights on the current state of U.S. meat exports and their importance to American agriculture. He emphasizes that U.S. beef exports remain competitive due to their high quality, safety, and sustainability.
For exports to remain strong, we have to be price competitive, or we have to have something that somebody wants. And right now we're filling that void because we have quality, really good quality, we have safety, and we think we do a great job of sustainability. Our product overseas is desired because of its quality, and they all know it's a safe product, and it makes it a little easier to sell overseas when we have that. There's nothing like the taste of corn-fed beef. Everybody likes it and everybody wants it.
Hansen identified market expansion as a priority for USMEF. While China has been a major player, USMEF is also investing in newer markets like Africa, Central America, and South America.
I think everybody's looking to expand. For a while there, China was just really going strong. But we realized that we have to have a broad-based marketing. So we're moving into Africa, and we have been in Africa for a while. Central America is strong. We're trying to find some new markets there. South America is coming on. Colombia has become a really interesting market. And, of course, our really good trade partner to the South, Mexico. They are on target to set a record for pork imports, and that's really big. Also, they've been really strong in the beef area. Mexico is a great trading partner, and we've been fortunate to keep them, and I think that looks really bright in the future for us.
He says with expanding markets and strong trade relationships, USMEF continues to drive demand for U.S. red meat, supporting both global consumers and American producers. That's our show for today. I'm Sabrina Halverson. On behalf of Lorrie Boyer and myself, thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halverson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.